Good afternoon, all, and welcome to another edition of the Sal Greco Show. Thank you all for tuning in. If you are watching us on YouTube, please hit that like, share, subscribe button. Hit that notification bell as well. Also on Rumble, if you're watching us on Rumble, hit the Rumble button, hit the like button. And if you're watching us on X right now, streaming live, please repost this, share this with all your friends and some of the low information people that you might have in your circle, and try to bring them up to speed, since this is a show based on facts. It's a fact-based analysis show. It is Thursday. There's a lot going on in the news. So there's a lot of stuff that's been happening, a lot of Israel-Iran stuff, but there was something that happened in the last 24 hours I was going to play. So just to show you this video before I play it, this gentleman in the gray suit and this female had an accident, apparently in New York City. So we're going to unveil the facts of this, but let's just play this.
Turn around.
Now, you may think that's just a normal thing that happened in New York City. No, it's not. I'm going to tell you the details of that. First of all, that man in a gray suit is not a police officer. He works for the Attorney General of New York State, Letitia James. He works for her, and he handcuffed someone that he had an accident with. And it's all over the internet, the facts of this case, but that is mind-numbing to think that happened. You know, if you're off duty as a police officer or even on duty, you're not allowed to just handcuff someone that you had a fender bender with. But I was going to show this tweet. I'm going to show you this post by Miles Miller on this. So, look, this is some of the facts here. The woman who declined to identify herself was briefly handcuffed and detained while driving a vehicle assigned to the Attorney General earlier that day, according to people familiar with the matter. She did not possess a valid driver's license, and the arrest was later voided. I don't know what the hell's going on there. Just knowing that Letitia James's people are involved in that, and now they're looking into the matter, which was another thing that was said. So her office is looking into a fender bender. That's I don't know what to say. I don't even know why anyone was handcuffed. What I can tell you this. So, you know, if I'm off duty or I'm retired, I wouldn't even get involved. By the way, if you are retired off duty, what the hell are you doing with a pair of handcuffs? I mean, are you like a commando? Like what? Why even get involved? Because now look at what just happened. Someone here, stay trained up, says, so he's not a post-certified peace officer. I'm suing the ish out of their behinds. Yeah, IMP Franco, sue. I believe there are already attorneys on that. You can't just handcuff someone. I don't care Letitia James involved or not. It's just that I mean, this is not something you see every day. So be prepared to hear about that one. That is unbelievable. Pat Donahue chimes in, says the guy in the gray suit is a retired detective. I don't know. It says that he works for Letitia James' office. I don't know. It's either her or him. One of them worked for Letitia James directly. Now, if you voided this arrest, I don't know, because now you have to bring her in. You can't just put handcuffs and just let them go on the scene. We're learning that now with certain incidents that occurred in the 4-0, right? At a certain nightclub, which we still don't have any information of other than what I've been reporting here. No one wants to write about a stabbing that occurred at Sobro Gardens. But again, you know, this kind of incident here, I mean, Pat Donahue says investigations for the AG's office have arrest powers. True. But is that avoided arrest? Was there avoided arrest done there? You can't just handcuff people. And for what? She drove into your car. You're going to arrest her? That is a lawsuit. But that's what goes on in the world of New York and Letitia James. Anthony DiMaggio, who shout out to him, he was on the show recently. He says she must have had a MAGA bumper sticker. Letitia's office only breaks out those silver bracelets for Trump supporters. That would be hysterical if that's true, but I wouldn't put it past anyone there. So, man, I just can't believe that happened in the last 24 hours. So I wanted to now bring on our guest because he's very important because he's a New York Assemblyman, and that's Ed Ra, who represents represents Long Island, if I'm not mistaken, right, Ed?
Correct. Western Nassau County.
Western Nassau County. So thanks for coming on the show. It's a very it's my honor to have you on, especially since there's a lot of things that you could at least give some of the viewers here direction on what's going on in New York State. I mean, you just saw something like that. I mean, you got a lot of problems. There's some good things in your county. I'd say that's a good area versus the rest of New York. But I mean, what can you say first off, like some of the stuff that you have to deal with on a daily basis in the assembly? I mean, you were just telling me before you were just trying to they were just having some legislation. I mean, I don't even know what kind of legislation they put forward because they don't seem to do anything up there.
Well, we just finished our session for the year just very early yesterday morning. We finished about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, from Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. The final weeks are like a blur. That's when most of the bills passed. I think total over the course of this session, we passed close to 1,000 bills. Some of them are very minor things, local things and stuff like that. But it's funny you just mentioning that incident, which is obviously a very interesting situation. The two of the bills we passed and were debated pretty vigorously by my side of the aisle the last night of session were bills that enhance the Attorney General's power dealing with different situations. And the objection that myself and many of our colleagues raised is that, they seem to go after, certain people for political reasons. And the last thing we want to do is expand the power to do that.
That is, I see a lot of that. It's all over that state. Letitia James has a problem with basically conservative people. It seems that's the way she leans. Something I was pointing out to you was recently she is started probing these cops in Ossawaga County for cooperating with ICE. But the rumor or what allegedly happened is there was also some kind of meeting or something that went on behind the scenes, and she's now looking at the cops in your county and in Suffolk County saying those police officers should not be cooperating with ICE. So that means anything that's going on with illegal immigration, or let's say they have someone in custody, they're not allowed to notify ICE. That's basically what the gist of the state law is. So now she's coming out saying that she's going to investigate the Nassau County cops. Here it says here, The Attorney General wants documents related to agreements between the Sheriff's Office and federal agencies like U.S. Customs and Border Protection, U.S. Immigration Customs Enforcement, ICE, and the Department of Homeland Security that have to do with enforcement of immigration law, ICE detention requests, and the circumstances surrounding the detention process for individuals who allegedly violated immigration law. That's what would fall under Nassau County. And I understand that that's the next area that she's looking at.
Yeah, County Executive Blakeman has made very clear Nassau County is not a sanctuary county. Our law enforcement are going to cooperate with the federal government. They're going to follow federal law. But as you know, New York State, by an executive order, which the governor has put her name on and could rescind at any time if she wanted to, but obviously she won't, makes us a sanctuary state. I don't know if you saw this one just the other night. Actually, that night as we were wrapping up session, a couple blocks away in the Capitol, the acting U.S. attorney up in Albany got chased on the street in Albany, 2 blocks from the state capitol, by an illegal immigrant who had been deported at least once, had a criminal record in El Salvador, and apparently has crimes on his record from 3 other states, yet was still walking around in New York State and chasing down our acting U.S. attorney with a knife. So that's the reality of Kathy Hochul's New York State under her sanctuary state executive order.
Yeah, and I saw recently also, if you the other day, I believe she commented on the arrest of Brad Lander, who's the city comptroller, who running for mayor did this whole, it looked like a political stunt to me. Goes to the 26 Federal Plaza, where he's been walking the illegal immigrants that are going there for various court cases in and out of there. And he walks them, makes it look like he's their best friend. And apparently that case is the one he was arrested for, interfering with an official proceeding, I guess. He was arrested, and then Kathy Hochul came out and said that now she said that the case going to get dismissed. Like, apparently it did. I said it would, but I don't know. She's backing Brad Lander now. I mean, what is her deal, man? Kathy Hochul.
Yeah, well, she clearly was on that scene very quickly, and I mean, but from the video I've seen, I mean, you have the ICE agents coming in, and Lander grabs arm with them. So I think he pretty clearly was trying to interfere with them executing their duties.
I mean, I saw that and I said, it's just kind of like what's his face in the New Jersey, the Newark mayor did the same thing. It's more for their campaign, because a lot of people now that didn't know who Brad Lander was now know him to run, and he's running for mayor. So here's another comment here. Raheem Hamilton says, James is turning to Long Island because she got that talk from upstate New York, and he told her to back the F off. That's in regards to her assuming that this is true, that she's now targeting the Nassau County cops and Suffolk County cops for cooperating with the ICE. Even if, now that's the thing. What happens in a county like this? So she's trying to probe one way, and the county has a different law altogether. How does all of that break down when the federal law says one thing, the state law says another, and your county law says it's okay? How does that work in Long Island? How would you even bring that forward as a case against cops?
Yeah, I mean, the sanctuary policy really is with regard to state level. I don't think the governor has any ability or legal right to tell a local police department that they can't follow the federal law. That's pretty ridiculous, and that's why, frankly, I have colleagues in the legislature who, just in the last couple of weeks, we're trying to pass this bill called New York for All. And the reason they were trying to do it is because that's exactly what it would do. It would put that policy into law and extend it to our local police departments so that they would not be able to cooperate with federal law enforcement. Thankfully, that bill did not go anywhere, but about a week ago, as we were getting near the end of session, a bunch of our Democratic Socialist colleagues were out lying in the middle of the street in front of the Capitol, blocking traffic all day long because they wanted this bill to be passed before we finished session. And a number of them, within hours of us gaveling out the other night, we're talking about we got to go back for a special session immediately and pass this bill, which would make New York a sanctuary state.
That is, I never understood that. I never understood why they want to, get in front of the Capitol, do stuff like that, block traffic. That just creates a hazardous condition. Yeah, Bruce Blakeman says, yeah, ICE partnership targets criminals to keep Nassau safe. And what would you say about the county in general? I think Nassau, I think they're doing a lot better now with public safety and crime and trying to curtail, especially now with the ICE running around. What would you say to your constituents there about that?
I mean, we've been rated the safest suburban county in the country. County Executive Blakeman's done a great job. Pat Ryder, who is our police commissioner, has done a great job, and it shows the difference when our officers know that the commissioner, know that the county executive who runs the county have their back for them to do their jobs. It goes a long way if you think about the climate we've been under over the last few years with regard to law enforcement.
Yeah, I could tell you, I was there for some of that, boy. Oof, that was brutal. But even then, even in those days, I can remember in the New York City Police Department, a lot of those cops I was with, they would say, if we worked in Nassau, it's still a county that favors at least some kind of decorum. New York City was the complete opposite. But now getting to New York City, because I was just thinking about when you mentioned some of your co-workers, there's one in particular that's, well, I guess you have the mayor's race. I don't know if you want to chime in on that, because you do have someone you work with running for office there. That would be Zoran Mamdani. So I don't know what your thoughts are on the mayor's race and his campaign, because there's so much chatter about that.
Yeah. So I say you just put up a quote from an article in the New York Post a few weeks ago, because they asked me about the fact that he had not made a vote in the state assembly for about a month. He really, from the time we finished the budget, the second week of May, he's been a no-show, has not been in Albany once, has not been voting on any bills, has missed hundreds and hundreds of votes. Look, he obviously has some talent in terms with connecting with people. He's done pretty well in the polls, but his policies are just completely as far left as you could possibly be. People are starting to hopefully wake up to that and seeing pulling out some of the old tweets about defunding the police and other extreme views. And look, he's like, I mentioned some of my Democratic Socialist colleagues, whether it's Mandami or any of the other Democratic Socialist colleagues. These guys all went and ran primaries against other Democratic members, many of which I would say were progressive Democrats, and had the resumes to back it up with things that they've gotten done. I didn't agree with the things they got done, but they had gotten a lot of stuff done in their time in office. This group really hasn't. They came in and they made a lot of noise, and they would criticize on the floor of the assembly their own party. But since then, I mean, I would say I'm sure they're doing this behind closed doors with their other Democratic colleagues, but they're pretty quiet on the floor when it comes to our assembly sessions.
So would you say you see him present for when you have to vote on bills, or is he absent?
Well, in the last 6 weeks, he hasn't been around at all. Before that, yeah, he was generally there when we were in session, but in the recent past, as it's gotten closer to this election, he's been spending his time back home in New York City campaigning. And look, I'll be honest, I'm fine with us finishing session without that extreme of voice hanging around in Albany trying to push an agenda that I don't think is the right thing for New York.
Yeah, I would think that, but I think that as he's an elected official, he should be at least showing up for the legislative sessions where you're voting on things.
Look, absolutely. We are the highest paid legislature in the country. You got to do your job first. And I don't know how you go and make the case to people, say, hey, give me another job, a higher job, but I'm going to neglect that one while I'm trying to get you to vote for me for something else.
When I read what you said, and you were saying to the post about him not being at the voting sessions, I think that's a dereliction of duty. I mean, I understand he's running for office, but to give you an example, if J.D. Vance, who's now the vice president, was the senator in Ohio and they're voting on something, he won't be campaigning that day to show up to vote. That's just the way it works. I don't know how.
Yeah.
He would come to the Senate chambers. He would vote on whatever bill's there. Here you have a guy running for mayor, and he's completely absent from the scene when it comes to voting for bills that, as a mayor, he may or may not have a say if those bills get passed and then affect the city. So he's not even voting on it. He doesn't even care. I don't get it with this guy. I look at him here. It says here he worked as a music supervisor on Queen of Catway, a Hollywood film about a chess prodigy from a shanty town on the outskirts of Campia, directed by his mother, Mira Nair, an Oscar-nominated filmmaker. And this is in 2015. Plus, I saw him crying yesterday, which is as you know, that's in a political playbook. When you get caught saying or doing something, you go out there and you start crying and get emotional because the low information people then say, "Oh, I'll still vote for him," and that's basically what he did yesterday.
It's scary to see how well he has done in the polls. I mean, if somebody like him were to be elected mayor, New York City is just done. And the wild card here, it is this ranked choice voting system.
Yes.
Because it's hard to fully understand how that vote plays out when you're dealing with people's second, third place votes, and it seems like the campaigns have gotten much smarter to how to utilize this and manipulate this than they did 4 years ago. And the question is, does the public truly get how this works to try to make sure that you don't end up with that type of person as our mayor?
Yeah, see, though, this kind of would still affect you because you're directly next door to this county in New York, in New York City. So, him being a mayor, whoever the mayor is, can affect what's going on in your county. So,
absolutely, absolutely. The district I represent starts probably 5 miles from the Queens border. We have people all the time that have committed crimes and done stuff like that, and they drive straight up Hempstead Turnpike and try to get into the city. So it definitely has a big impact. Obviously, we have tons of people who commute into the city for work, people that want to go enjoy New York City for everything that they have there. But and that's the scary thing in the recent past is I have constituents who tell me I don't go into New York City anymore, or I'm scared to let my kids go into New York City. Like, when I was younger and I started to be in the upper grades of high school, if I wanted to go in with my friends to do something, my parents weren't that worried about it. Now it's a different world.
Yeah, I mean, you can't even. I would say Nassau County as a whole is a lot better to either right now reside in or even travel to or visit than New York City, where they tell you crime is down, all this stuff, and then you turn around and just yesterday somebody was stabbed on a train. You have homeless people all over the place, which was I believe it was a trademark of Eric Adams running for office, saying we're going to have mental health and we're going to make this just like Bill de Blasio, and nothing has happened with that. You have the morale in the police department in the toilet amongst the rank and file, because the only thing that matters to them is hanging out and doing all these other criminal things that they were doing with Eric Adams on the side, and that's the upper echelon. And I mean, what do you think about all of that? I mean, that New York City, it politically speaking, is in complete chaos, including this mayor's race they have.
Yeah, it is, and you're going to have obviously whoever prevails in the in the Democratic primary. I mean, my money would still on at this point be on Andrew Cuomo winning that primary, but then you're gonna have kind of a very strange election in the fall, because you're gonna have at least a three-way election if Adams is the independent and then Sliwa as the Republican, and then there could be somebody still on a minor party line. So it's it's gonna be an interesting election, but we're into early voting on the Democratic primary, and next Tuesday is the primary day, and we'll see whether Cuomo can prevail or whether any of those below him can nip at his heels, and with this ranked choice system, actually get themselves above 50%.
Yeah, that whole ranked choice thing is creating chaos as well. Also, the voter turnout, although it seems pretty high, I believe, in Manhattan and Brooklyn, very low in the Bronx. It looks like decent in Queens and decent in Staten Island, but that's early voting. What's going to happen
Yeah.
election? Because again, if there's a low voter turnout, it turns out like it was 4 years ago. So again, and I also have problems with the Republican Party. They're not. I don't believe they're doing enough for Curtis Sliwa, who's if he's your candidate and he's running, the Republicans need to be pounding. I mean, hit the airwaves. I don't see that. I hear that there are donors in the Republican Party right now that are contributing to Eric Adams' campaign and Andrew Cuomo's campaign. If he's the candidate, why are you doing that if you're a Republican?
Yeah, and this type of circumstance, when you have an Adams in the race, and maybe Cuomo as a Democratic candidate, like they're going to divide the vote a little bit. So hopefully it's an opportunity for Republican, and everybody can kind of coalesce a little better around Curtis, and give him the support he needs to give him a good shot in the fall.
Yeah, that's what all I'm asking for is that, and not because I know him or he's a friend of mine, is just as a Republican candidate, you would expect some more support or even the donors. The problem is that the donors, they're contributing to Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo. That's a fact. I'm flabbergasted by that because that's kind of how that city's always run, where it's, one party. It's not really Democrat, Republican. These people behind the scenes, which are the high stake, the high rollers, they just get behind someone. You heard Bloomberg give, I guess it was the equivalent of $3 million in Cuomo's campaign and been hitting the airwaves, which is, I mean, I don't know if you would believe the polls the way they are. I always thought that Cuomo would win, even if he squeaked it out. But it looks like the real polls show that he's really ahead by a good margin, enough where it's a good breathing margin per se. Mamdani's polls are saying, oh, he's winning. They're nitpicking, I believe, or cherry picking, because I don't see him being as close as they say they are. But the campaign of his saying, oh, he could win, he's a threat, that would help Eric Adams. That's how I see it. I don't know why I don't understand the Trump thing. I'm not for that, why he would be behind him for any reason, but I can understand the thought process behind it. And that would, if he were to be, I mean, he's an independent, but if this race kind of fell back in his hands, it would be if Mamdani won that primary, which would be scary.
Probably. Yeah.
But I still don't, I don't know. I don't see him winning this. I can't see him being especially with that ranked choice voting thing. I can't see it. But a lot of people have been messaging me. They're worried about this Mamdani guy. And I'm like, look, if New York City is that low information that they're going to vote for him, so be it. And I'm talking about Democrat voters, but I don't, see him beating Cuomo. I just, the polls, nothing shows that. It's all him. This is him.
I don't either. But again, the right choice is what concerns me, that you could have a lot of people that are ranking him, second, third. And really, let's be honest, right? It's going to be, if you assume he's the second guy right now in the polls, none of the second choices of the Cuomo or Mandani voters really matter, because you're never going to get to that. It's the people that are going to fall off below that and who their second, third choice votes are. that are going to matter as they're going through the rounds of voting. But I mean, I would be surprised if Cuomo's not through in the first round in the 40s to begin with, which I don't know how through the subsequent rounds that's going to be overtaken.
I would think exactly like you. I'm thinking I see it like you. I see that Cuomo will be in the high 40s in that first round. Then subsequently, as the rounds keep going, he'll still be in the lead. Even if it's down to him and Mamdani, Cuomo would still win. I just see it that way. I think he's done enough work by, I'm not even saying he's campaigning. He's just a bigger name, I mean, yeah. Anthony DiMaggio says Nick Spano is a Republican, sort of, but is throwing fundraisers at his Yonkers home for Cuomo. He'll raise hundreds of thousands for the former governor's New York City mayoral campaign. I think that's one individual. Another individual recently I've been hearing about is the Yonkers mayor, who is going to be, I guess Kathy Hochul wants to make him, or there's rumors of that person going back to being a lieutenant governor. And the lieutenant governor, which is Anthony Delgado, would be pushed out because there's friction behind the scenes. You know anything about that? Have you heard anything about that?
Well, my understanding is they are vetting a number of people to be lieutenant governor. Obviously, whether Delgado were to leave before that point is another conversation. But at the end of the day, Hochul needs somebody to run with next year. So there's a couple of different names that I think have been out there. Spano's one of them. One of
There
my
he is.
colleagues, Brendan Cunningham, has been one of them from Brooklyn. There's a few other names out there, and we'll see. But if you think about Hochul's choices so far. I mean, she's on her second lieutenant governor already. The first person she picked, got into legal trouble, and she had to push him aside. And then she brings in Delgado, who is now running against her. So I wonder what their process is to try to find somebody that they think is going to be both the good candidate and maybe more loyal to her.
Yeah, I remember the first lieutenant governor, what's his name? Benjamin, right?
Yeah.
I remember him. And the funny thing was that he was in trouble for straw donations and things like that. And that case fell apart because one of the witnesses passed away. And then Delgado, both of them were frequenters of this place. I kind of mentioned it, this place called Con Sofrito in the Bronx, which is like a Michigas of everything that shouldn't be going on in life. But everybody's hanging out there with thugs and criminals. And Delgado and Benjamin were both there. And on top of it, another guy that was always there is a guy that leads the assembly. That is the speaker is Carl Hasty, who is, I guess, in the Bronx. He acts like he's the kingpin, but in the rest of the state, I don't know how this guy gets elected. I mean, if it was a statewide thing, I don't know how this guy would win, because he's like people despise this guy. Yet Carl Hasty is always getting reelected. There's no Republican ever running against him. Not that I don't know if their chances are, but how does he remain in power there as a speaker? And on top of it, what is it like to even have to deal with that guy in person? Because he's an eccentric character who's also very comfy, cozy with Kathy Hochul. And I mean, look, here's one of his problems. He refused to address his romance with a lobbyist. My life will never be in conflict. I think that is a conflict, no?
Yeah, well, I mean, the speaker, by virtue of his support within the Democratic conference, is the speaker. So that's how that works. I'll be honest. I've known him for many years. I served with him as a rank and file member when he ascended to the speakership, and he put it together, member by member and delegation by delegation, and got the support together, which I think he still has, in large part because I think that he has run the Democratic conference in a different fashion than Shelley Silver before him, who was very much an iron fist ruler. He's a little different. I think he's more drives it from the rank and file members. They feel like they've been more empowered. So I think that was a welcome change to a lot of those who had been around a long time under Silver. Um, you know, one on one, nice enough guy. I think that overall the problem we have in Albany often is just there's this set in way of doing things that dates back years. That's the party in power is in power, and the other party shouldn't be able to pass bills and shouldn't be able to do this and that. And unfortunately, sometimes the names and the characters change, but there's not the willingness to change that. As far as I'm concerned, whatever piece of legislation, who's ever his name on it as the sponsor, whether they're a Republican, whether they're a Democrat, let it go through the committee process. If they get the votes, it moves forward. If they don't, it doesn't. It shouldn't be, well, we need a majority only in the majority party. The votes of all 150 people are in the assembly. We've all been elected by roughly the same number of constituents, and we should all be given that equal weight.
Yeah, so I don't know if you could get into a little bit, because you just explained a little bit the whole process of trying to pass bills and what that's like. Because obviously, Republicans are unfortunately the minority. In my opinion, it's unfortunate in New York State. And so, how do you move things along when you have to deal with how this you're overwhelmed basically in numbers? So Democrats kind of could push things along, and they have the numbers to do it, and you're in a minority. So how does that work?
Well, depending on the issue, I mean, I've certainly had uh, bills that I knew a Democratic colleague. I've been there for 15 years, so I have a good sense of who's a little more moderate, who's interested in the same issues I'm interested in. So you can get things done by going and working with a colleague on the other side of the aisle. Um, you know. And moving it forward, which, look, at the end of the day, I don't think government's about who gets the credit. It's about doing the right thing for our constituents. So you can move things that way, but it's I would say there's certain types of issues that even if you're on the Democratic side, aren't necessarily going to be allowed to move. We talked about this bill earlier with regard to unsubstantiated complaints against officers. This
Oh
was
yes,
this
yeah.
was something that came up when 50A was being repealed in 2020. It was we proposed a floor amendment to do this. It was voted down, and even though there's a number of Democratic members on, as co-sponsors on this bill, it hasn't moved out of committee. That may be the type of example I would give you of a bill that, um, if you were to just have a fair vote, let everybody on both sides vote their conscience, what they think is best, I think it would move forward. But instead, the old way of doing things that's been around for many years in Albany is, unless a majority on the Democratic side want this to move forward, it's not going to move forward.
Yeah, that bill we're talking about is 82074. That is the sealing of certain claims against police officers. That would be repealing the 50A in the sense of any exonerated, unsubstantiated, or pending claims would not be published on the 50A, made public. Eric Dim and John McCarr, to their credit, from the Finest Unfiltered podcast, has testified in person or live on Zoom at the CCRB meetings about this, and they're very adamant and been advocates for this. To this day, it's still there, and they're just saying they want that at least repealed, only because in due time, if an officer is retired 10, 15 years from now, even some that are no longer with us, you could go back and look and say, oh, you look at all these things and you're saying, wow, what a bad guy. But a lot of stuff is unsubstantiated, but it shows up. So they're
Yeah,
just trying to get that repealed. I think that
yeah.
it's a good thing, but
It would just treat them the same way we treat other public employees for purposes of this. If you're a teacher and there's a complaint against you, and it's unsubstantiated, or it's found to be false, it doesn't get shared with the public. Unfortunately, that is the case under the current state of the law with regard to police officers. So it's a good bill.
I see. Other thing too, I guess I want to ask you is all those things they keep saying about repealing the bail reform and all those. How do you see that going there in those chambers? Because there's a lot of talk always, and it's always like a ping pong of the governor it's all, I don't see her doing anything about it. She says a lot, but she doesn't present anything or try to do anything about it.
There's been very minor tweaks made over the last couple of years that the governor has tried to sell as being really big things, but they haven't been. What really needs to happen is we need to put in a dangerousness standard like every other state has. So a judge would have true discretion. Right now, regardless of what changes we've made, you're still the judges in a lot of ways. I always say they're like a blackjack dealer because it says, if the defendant's in front of you on a certain charge and that charge isn't bail eligible, it's not bail eligible. It doesn't matter what your history is. It doesn't matter whether you have any connections to even New York State. None of that matters. It just matters whether the crime is on that list of crimes you can set bail for. So a dangerousness standard would allow the judge to make a finding on the record and say, hey, this person has a number of prior violent offenses. This person is from another state and is likely to flee. Those types of things, and make that determination.
Yeah, I that law is actually how it is in right next door in New Jersey. Yet the judge can make which is the reason the bail reform. What they were trying to do is it was a lot of minor offense stuff that those people were being subjected to. And I can understand you're actually hurting someone to keep them in there for a minor thing, whatever it could be. They're there overnight, no bail. But now the judges in New Jersey, if you let them make that decision, because you might have something in front of you as a paper and you go, this guy's a really bad guy. He shouldn't be getting bail. Where now there's only certain crimes that can happen. So I think that all you have to really do is change that to the judges make the decision. But yet again, we see a lot of indecision with Kathy Hochul and how she moves with that when it's really an easy solution, but she just doesn't do anything.
I
want to present this. I don't know, and a lot of people are really upset over that one. Another one is congestion pricing is another thing that was I believe it started under Cuomo. Now it's funny how Cuomo now is out there though saying, oh, he's against the things that he was very much for and presented. That is very bizarre, in my opinion. That's working. Here, New York City congestion pricing toll has cut Manhattan traffic delays by 25% and reduced gridlock in nearby New Jersey counties by as much as 14%, undercutting fears the policy would worsen traffic outside the state. It's from Bloomberg City Lab. So, it comes with its good and bad, but again, that's another Kathy Hochul special that she really pushed forward. I know the president's against all. He's not for that.
A lot of people don't realize this. You may know this. Congestion pricing and bail reform were both in the same bill. They were both pushed through in the state budget back in 2019. And look, at the end of the day, this thing has been. They called it congestion pricing, but really the end goal was always to raise money for the MTA. We'll see as we get more data, because one of the things I was hearing early on were people were just parking right outside the zone, and really you're going to have good data saying, oh, it's reduced gridlock in this part of Manhattan, but that other places are going to have those cars cutting through there. So we'll see over time, but at the end of the day, I think people have to remember it really was primarily about raising money. That's how it started when Cuomo was governor and he first proposed this in the budget that year. The starting point was, we need to raise $1 billion from the MTA. How do we do it?
So this is their grand scheme is doing this. That's incredible. It was something else too recently with Hochul passing some other bill. There's so many bills and stuff that they try to pass or they don't pass, and then it doesn't either go down the way it should, or the latest bill that was another controversial bill that was passed was that there's like a $10 million fund for any kind of issues, let's say the attorney general may have, will come out of taxpayer expense for anything, meaning what she is going through right now. Her civil, these are criminal cases that she's now being investigated for in Virginia. How did that even transpire? How that even got passed?
It was shoved in the state budget, one of the budget bills this year. Came to light that it was in there. I actually, one of my roles, I'm the ranking member of the Ways and Means Committee, so I am the person on the Republican side who debates all the budget bills. And I questioned the chair of Ways and Means about it on the floor. And I mean, it's very broad parameters. We've always had we have a law that if a state employee gets himself into trouble related to their job, that the state defends them. This is completely for situations that can be unrelated to the person's government responsibilities, and just has language basically that's the idea that they're being targeted for that reason, which you know no matter what it was, something like this private land situation, in another state, the idea that the New York State taxpayer should pay for our defense is ridiculous.
That is like highway robbery, Tim, in my opinion. I can't believe that you're using taxpayer money to defend her in a case that involves Virginia mortgage fraud that allegedly occurred in Virginia. New York State taxpayers are funding that bill. It reminds me of in New York City how the mayor has corporation counsel funding his sexual harassment suit, which, by the way, has not gone away, and they're still funding all his buddies in the same circumstances. Yet under municipal law 50K2, that can't happen because it's not in the scope of your duty, sexual harassment or rape, but you can't do that while you're a cop or a city employee, let alone a state employee. And here we go. She's being represented for mortgage fraud in Virginia by New York State taxpayers. I just can't wrap my head around that. I can't believe that.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. It's not right. And it shows you the type of things that get pushed through when you have a single party controlling New York State government for the last 6-7 years.
Yeah, that is crazy. I don't know. Moving forward though, what is your vision when you get back into the legislative session? Is there any bills that you know of or anything they're trying to pass through that's so positive for New York State, or something that you believe might move forward for the state or for your area?
Yeah, I mean, I hope that we can continue to try to, focus a little bit more on certainly on the public safety stuff, and certainly on affordability. Long Island is a very expensive place to live. We've unfortunately the New York State budget has grown by huge percentages in the recent past. And we're going to have a problem at some point where we thankfully our revenues have been strong, but we had the single largest year-to-year increase this year since the Great Recession. The budget went up $13 billion from last year to this year. So there's a lot. And what happens when you spend that much money? There's a lot of great stuff. There's support for childcare, and there's these tax rebate checks, and great. But even the controller of New York State, who is a Democrat, has pointed out for years, your recurring revenue and your recurring spending do not match up. So we're already looking at something around $28 billion over the next several years in out-year budget gap. So we're gonna have a problem. So what we really need to do is get things tightened up so that the revenues match the spending, and we're not putting ourselves in a situation that we're gonna have a huge problem in the out years.
Kind of like now, Kathy Hochul wants to help illegal immigrants by giving them more money. That was another thing that she said yesterday. That will only balloon that deficit. I'm wondering, in New York, which is a high revenue state, and what you're saying that behind the rears, I mean, you could basically bankrupt the state by spending excessively on stupidity like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we spend money on the state level that we shouldn't be, and we need to, like I said, we need to get things back in line so that we have a sustainable budget.
I mean, here's some of the stuff right there. Personal income tax, $58.8 billion. My God. You have to do. I mean, it can't be on you. I mean, you need the whole legislation there should be on this. I don't know
Well,
why.
and the problem too is, especially with regard to personal income tax, we are so reliant on a very small percentage of taxpayers. And I mean, they did more of it this year in the state budget in terms of increasing percentages on high earners. Well, a lot of that is bonuses. A lot of those are finance people, and it's very volatile. And they may have a great year one year. Things start to go bad, it's a huge impact on the state budget because there's a very small number of people, or you just need a few of them to move away, which we know is a huge problem for New York State. People are leaving for the Carolinas, people are leaving for Florida, people are leaving for Texas.
They want to leave. They're leaving for the lower tax bracket. That's what it is. It's the state. In Florida, we have no state income tax, so that would help out any high earners or anyone that has a second residence or a business in New York, and that would help them out. But that budget problems, I didn't even think about asking that to you, but now I'm thinking about it. It's like, oh, you're right. I mean, that's one of the worst run states in the union, basically. Other than California, New York would be either one or two, I think, as far as they run with their budget, which is they just spend like. It's like a drunken sailor. Let's give money to more illegal immigrants. I guess that's what she's doing now, Kathy Hochul. So somebody needs to rein her in. One last thing I want to ask you was this conflict now in Israel and Iran, because you keep hearing conflicting reports. What is your take on that? I mean, that could affect not only the country, but New York in general is a high Jewish population there. I mean, what do you hear on the ground there in Nassau? Is there any what is your take on, and what is the constituents' take on this whole conflict that's going on there right now?
Well, I mean, let me say this as a state level lawmaker. Obviously, I'm not getting foreign policy intel and things of that nature. But I am very pro-Israel. I've had the opportunity to travel there. I really couldn't believe when I was there how the ties to New York, like you said, are so unbelievable. Like we were with a group, and they were just running into people in the hotel that were from New York. So it is worrisome that a place with such a large Jewish population like New York could be a target. We've been trying to work on the state level with regard to the anti-Semitism issues. Obviously, CUNY has had huge problems with regard to that. And we need to I think do more at the state level to rein that in and make sure our Jewish students feel safe, make sure all of our students and all of our residents feel safe in New York State.
That's what I would say. I say this. I didn't want another conflict, another war where America's in the Middle East forever, kind of like they were with Iraq and Afghanistan. I almost feel, I don't know what's going on. The president might have his back against the wall with this. I mean, unless there's some kind of miracle agreement. I mean, it just last night there were more strikes. It's just alarming because the reason New York is in the red. First of all, I believe it's the number one target of terrorists all the time. So if anything were to go wrong and anything were to happen, New York would be the number one target. And also it has the highest population of Jewish people in this country. So New York would be the target. And so I would always keep an eye on that if I lived in New York, because that could turn around like a boomerang over here in New York and in this country. And it's just scary to think that. And I saw it happen last night and said, oh boy, this might be escalating when you want this to de-escalate. Yeah. So, I just hope the president is going to do the right thing and is being advised correctly. Before you leave, Ed, what's your favorite pizzeria in New York?
My favorite pizzeria, I would say Umberto's down by me.
Umberto's. There's one down here by me also. Umberto's. That was also a restaurant in Little Italy, but I think they moved from where they were because they went from there to Long Island, and then from Long Island they have another spot actually down here in South Florida. Good choice, Umberto's. They have very good food. There it is in New Hyde Park. I like that choice. Shows you're a real New Yorker, Ed. That's what matters. They say there's New Yorkers and there's the real New Yorkers.
Proudly in the 19th Assembly District.
That's right. Where crime is low, and it's actually low. It's not like New York City where they say crime is down and you see all kinds of craziness behind you as they tell you, oh, the chart here, the crime is down here, the big black charts over there with the big numbers, and it's all fake. As we've proven numerous times on this show, people doing all the research. Ed, where can people follow you, or if you have a website for your future campaign? You obviously going to keep running for office, so where can we reach you?
Sure. On the social media platforms, I'm just Edward Ra, EDWARD RA 19. That's both my Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and my Instagram. And campaign website is edra4ny.com.
Ed, I'm also a hopelessly devoted Met fan, so I don't know what to say. We lost 5 in a row recently.
Yeah,
but,
well, they looked like world beaters a week ago. It's been a rough week. Hopefully, they can get back on track.
We go up and down, Ed. This is the life of a Met fan. You know?
Yes, it is.
You're the best team in the league, and all of a sudden the rug gets pulled underneath you,
Yeah.
or somebody gets hurt. It's always something.
Yeah,
that's a good one. Ed. Let's go Mets.
let's go Mets.
All right. Ed,
thank you.
Thank you for coming on, and good luck with everything in the future. And hopefully I'll have you back if there's anything that comes forward and comes up in Nassau, New York.
All right, you got it.
Thank you. Ed. God bless. There you have it. There's Ed Ra, a Met fan. Now I like him even more. I think he has a lot of you heard a lot about what goes on in that state assembly, and I'm sure people want to know, especially if you live in New York. That's just a little bit of what goes on in these state legislations. You see how hard that things could get passed and how they work. So I wanted people to see that so they understand how it works and what's going on, because that governor, Kathy Hochul, she's a highly conflicted woman. I don't know what's going on there, what's going on in her head. But now it's time to bring on my producer, Jack. Jack, the producer. What did you think about that? You found another Met fan. Ed is a Met fan like me. I mean, we're hopeless. We really are. We lost 5 in a row.
So I'm a little bit surprised that Ed is a Mets fan and not a Yankees fan, because if we're drawing lines of demarcation, I think that Nassau County generally has more Yankees fans, and then Suffolk County has more Mets fans. Now, I don't have any statistical evidence to back it up, but I associate the wealthier demographic of Nassau County with being bad and bougie up in the Bronx. I don't know if I'm making a parallel analogy that's overblown or not. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I will say right now it's getting a little bit crowded in the outhouse when we had gotten used to living in the penthouse, right? Because the Yankees were swept by the Red Sox over the weekend. They lost the first 2 games to the Angels, trailing 2-1 right now in the 3rd inning. There's currently a rain delay in the Bronx at Yankee Stadium. But Joe Adell, the former minor league prospect who didn't pan out, hit a home run for the 2nd day in a row for the Angels. And everything's just going badly for the Yankees right now. Anthony Volpe's in a little bit of a slump, had a horrible error in the 8th inning last night, which allowed the Angels to pull ahead. And then with the Mets, I think that it's been a little bit more of a war of attrition, if you will, right? They've had so many injuries that it's just been hard to overcome. And it's noticeable a lot more so in the pitching staff than it is with the lineup. I mean, last night, Paul Blackburn was absolutely awful, right? 3 runs in the 1st inning, 5 runs overall. His ERA right now has ticked up all the way to around 9. I have to imagine he's not going to be lasting very long. And then Frankie Montas, who was supposed to be a savior coming up from the minor leagues, he just finished a rehab assignment, was absolutely destroyed in AAA Syracuse as well. So I don't know. I think that this is more than just a speed bump for both teams. It's conceivable, but that both of them kind of overachieved a little bit in April and May and are now leveling off just a little bit.
Yeah, Anthony DiMaggio said wrong, Jack. They lost the first 3 games to the Angels. They're really embarrassing me.
Yes.
I don't know what's going on, but I say this in the season, it's never a sprint, it's a marathon. So you're going to have these ups and downs, and they have to, again, like you said, it's the war of attrition. People get hurt. Same thing on the Yankees. It just happens. It's just when it happens, you're like, oh my God. It's like They can't get out of their own way. They can't field an easy ground ball. They can't get a hit with a runner on second base. They can't make a simple catch. Somebody comes in the bullpen, they're giving up hit after hit. Yeah, it happens. It'll happen in a season. It's funny how it's happening to both the Mets and the Yankees the exact same time. The exact same time.
Right.
But,
and as Yankees fans, we thought that maybe getting Giancarlo Stanton back was going to add a little bit more pop to the lineup. And while he's been decent in a small sample size, it really hasn't materialized in the way that we thought it would. And then on the other side of the aisle with the Mets, as I mentioned earlier, like the injury bug, you can't just like expect to remedy that with bodies from the minor leagues. At some point, I think they're going to have to end up trading one of the top prospects, whether it be Jet Williams, Carson Benj, I believe his name, Kevin Parada, that catcher that they took out of Georgia Tech, who's had kind of an up and down minor league career. They're going to have to think about maybe dealing one of them and a Brandon Sproat or Blade Tidwell to maybe go and acquire a piece that can help them right now if they're going to be making a run against a team like the Dodgers, which is incredibly deep once again.
Yeah. That's the best. Your analysis is spot on, I believe, as they like to say. You know the trade very well, especially baseball. A lot going on also in basketball. I believe the new owner of the Los Angeles Lakers was announced. He bought the team for $10 billion. Of course, he owns the Dodgers, so he's going to bring that style. Two family-run organizations, the Dodgers and now the Lakers, are going to be run by not only a billionaire. This guy is kind of like a piranha when he sets up shop, as you saw what he did with the Dodgers. The only thing is he's salary cap in the NBA, so I don't know if he's going to be able to spend like a drunken sailor, but he came up with the idea of, deferring payments to Ohtani to get him to sign. So he'll come up with something in the NBA, and now look out for the Lakers. They'll probably be perennial winners once again. But I found that, what's his name? Mark Trader is his name, I believe.
Yes.
Mark Trader bought the team for $10 billion from the Buss family. So look out for that. You will see the Lakers now, and it's $10 billion is a lot of money, by the way, because they're a small franchise, but it's a big product. I mean, it could become a mega billion-dollar operation soon on the Mark Trader. But Jack, what did you have for us up on deck here? I know you're always on top of something.
Yes. So this week, in case you've been living under a rock, it's been a pretty eventful week in New York City, but I'm going to spotlight the interaction between Eric Adams and Chris Summerfeld specifically. So I wrote a column and I put it out yesterday on X. Anyone can go and read it. Adams' treatment of Summerfeld sends grim message to local NYC media. And what I mean by that is Eric Adams, he kind of pushed Chris Summerfeld away and he tried to ban him. This came after Summerfeld had been shouting questions for 3 months. The reason that Adams gave for banning him kind of varied a little bit. He said he was being disrespectful. He wasn't waiting his turn. He wasn't showing any courtesy. He did ask tough questions, and I'll show you one of the questions that he asked him on the way, on Adams' way outside of Gracie Mansion in a second. But the bottom line here, guys, is Eric Adams does not need to treat the media like he needs them. He does not need to treat them like they matter, because the harsh reality is that they don't. And this is a concept that is representative of the entire media landscape, right? Politicians nowadays have their own social media accounts. They have deep-rooted communications teams, many of whom are former journalists themselves. More on that in a second. And the bottom line is they can control the narrative coming out of their office and all of the press coverage around them. So therefore, they don't need white liberal people who are making $65,000 a year to come and ask them really difficult questions. They don't like that. But as it pertains to Eric Adams, I think the unsung hero in this case is none other than Kayla Mamalak. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because she is one of those former journalists that I mentioned a second ago. She's been kind of like the biggest weapon for Adams. And she was on the front lines of COVID coverage in New York City. She became an expert in Moderna versus Pfizer, efficiency versus efficacy. These were big things during the pandemic, and she really understood how to tell a story. Now, you fast forward a couple years, and Eric Adams made a very smart decision in prying her away from the low-paying, horrible journalism industry, which most of us end up leaving, and he hired her to be his press secretary. she's done an excellent job in terms of shooing the media away when they try and ask tough questions. There was a confrontation between her and Katie Honan from the city where she pretty much said, press availability is over. You need to leave right now. And she shooed her out of the building. And after Chris Sommerfeld was banned, this was PR handling 101 at its best display. Chris Sommerfeld, obviously, he wants to get answers, right? Because he's a journalist. That's what he does. So he decided to follow Eric Adams outside City Hall and ask him a tough question about none other than Tim Pearson, someone we've talked about a lot on this show. And let's just take a look at the interaction.
Are you blocking on purpose?
No, this is stairs are gonna look short.
Mr. Mayor, a question I've been meaning to ask you for a while about Tim Pearson. A settlement was
We're in
made?
the middle of a conversation anyway, so.
Okay, but I was hoping if you can chime in on this.
Yeah, all right, great.
Tim Pearson's case was settled. Do you think that was fair to New York City taxpayers, $350,000? Or do you believe that there was anything that Tim did wrong during that incident?
Office and we can give you a statement, all right?
Don't worry about it. You got listen. Don't put up in people that want to be annoying.
Yeah.
We're
But,
just
uh,
in the
I'm
middle of a
being
conversation.
annoying,
All right,
I'm just
but
But you asked a
questions.
question. If you want more, you can reach out to our press office and we can give you a statement, okay?
Okay.
So,
Okay, bye.
so Kayla, but thanks a million.
So that was a very interesting way, if I may use that phrase, to handle the situation. First, May Malak downplayed Adams' ability to even answer the question by saying we're in the middle of a conversation. Then when he confronted Adams by his personal vehicle, she said, reach out to our press office and we will answer the question. Obviously, the press office is not going to be talking about how Tim Pearson stole taxpayer money and used it in the settlement. Like, we all know we're not going to be getting a real answer to that question, but they don't have to be giving a real answer. So they're just going to keep deflecting and keep deflecting. And as everyone searches for answers, they're going to sweep this right under the rug by having all these videos of Eric Adams making smoothies in Gracie Mansion and shaking hands with people. This is controlling the public perception in the best way possible. And although the New York City media might not like it, you have to take your hat off and give credit to Kayla May Malak because she's kind of been the unsung hero. And as I mentioned at the top of this segment, the excellent employee that Eric Adams definitely did not deserve.
That's right. Might be the one employee that didn't frequent Con Sofrito as well. So that might be someone who's not part of the little corrupt circle of Eric Adams and friends. That's why she's so good, because she's outside of that box. Because he had no choice. He had nobody left. Who was he going to put there? So Kayla came in and said, I'll take this job. And she's not part of that Crumbs crew or Con Sofrito crew. So she's going to do her job. So now you're see, if Eric had people like that the whole time, he might have been cruising to another term as mayor. But instead, we all know what happened there. And Tim Pearson's one of the issues. I think he's cost the city more than $350,000, by the way.
Way more than that. And I think the media was a little bit soft. Where were the questions about Ed Caban when everything went down? Just wanted to point that out. But anyway, yeah, I mean, like she understands that they don't have to answer anyone's questions. The First Amendment right of freedom of speech has kind of been limited and suppressed a little bit in today's environment for the reasons that I just mentioned. And yeah, Eric Adams is he's going to continue to walk around talking about hanging out with shorties and jumping over turnstiles and smiling and acting in his sleazy manner as he usually does, because this is the day and age that we live in where they tell you, if you are given a press pass, it is a privilege and we can revoke it at any time. I don't care about the unions involved who barely even fight for you in the journalism industry. It's not like being a cop or a fireman or anything else. Those unions are kind of there for show.
Yeah.
But, you know, yeah, it's like the press's role in society has been suppressed to the point where they're not wanted and they're treated like they're not needed. And it's because they're not.
That's right. That's right. But she does do a good job, though. Jack, thanks for coming on, giving me a take. We'll see Jack on the next one on Tuesday. Guys, if you can, go back and watch Executive Perspective from yesterday. Go back on there and check it out. That was an excellent show. There was a lot of topics, but Ron and Rob, they definitely hit on a very couple, key points, what's going on with things in the New York City Police Department. So guys, if you check that out, go back to that. It's also on Wednesdays at 5:05, 17:05 each Wednesday. But tomorrow morning, watch The Finest Unfiltered at 8:05 live. John and Eric and Marlon will be on, and I want to tip their hand, but it's going to be something that's they're going to show you something. It's going to be must-see TV, so just make sure you tune in. Maybe I make a guest appearance, who knows, but it's going to be something that everyone should watch. So watch that. Be on the lookout for that one tomorrow. Finest Unfiltered, 8:05, live in the morning. You're going to want to watch. That's all I'm going to say. If I put my stamp of approval, that's good. But all right, so guys, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I think Ed Ra is an excellent assemblyman. You got a lot of answers. Some of these elected officials don't like to answer things, don't like to give an insight on things, but you heard a lot there. So that's what you would expect. But he's a good man, and also he's a Met fan. I think that's also important. So that's all here from South Florida. Hope everyone has a good day. Have a great weekend as well. And we'll see you on Tuesday at 1:05 in the afternoon. So until then, remember, Florida, what is it? Sunny. It's a sunny place for what? Shady people.
So this is a biblical moment. When Jesus was on the cross, he said, God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. All these Negroes who are asking me to step down, God, forgive them. Are you stupid?